Right now, across the United States, millions of Americans are working, paying taxes, raising families, and trusting that the system around them is fair. You wake up early, you budget your money, you protect your kids, and you expect that the powerful follow the same rules you do. But what if the truth is far more complicated? What if secrets tied to some of the world's most influential figures are still locked inside government files, and only now are those doors beginning to crack open? That is why this latest Epstein Files update is sending shockwaves across the country. It isn't just about one man. It isn't just about one scandal. It's about whether the system treats ordinary Americans differently than the elite. It's about whether the truth was hidden, delayed, or protected behind layers of redactions and legal walls. For years, people have asked the same question: who knew what and when? And now, after millions of pages of documents, emails, photos, and investigative materials have started to surface, lawmakers themselves are admitting that some names may have been concealed. This isn't just a story for politicians or courtroom insiders. It affects public trust, government accountability, and how safe families feel in a country that promises justice for all. When powerful people are tied to major scandals, the consequences don't just stay in Washington. They ripple through your community, your economy, and your future. And now, with lawmakers reviewing previously hidden documents and new revelations emerging, the mystery surrounding the Epstein files is exploding back into the national spotlight. But the biggest question is still ahead. What exactly is in those files, and why did it take so long to see them? The massive release that changed everything. The turning point came when the Justice Department released millions of pages of Epstein-related files as part of a federal transparency law. This wasn't a small update or a few documents trickling out. We're talking about a massive data dump, millions of pages that include reports, emails, photographs, and investigative records. For everyday Americans, that kind of number is almost impossible to imagine. Millions of pages mean decades of connections, meetings, travel records, financial dealings, and communications. It means an entire world of information that had been sitting behind closed doors. But here's where the mystery begins. Despite the huge release, officials admitted that millions more documents were still under review. In fact, at one point, less than 1% of the total files had been made public, with more than 2 million still being examined. That's where the frustration started building across the country. People asked, if transparency is the goal, why are so many files still hidden? Why are some pages blacked out? And why did deadlines pass with so much information still locked away? For families watching the news at home, it felt like a slow drip of information instead of a full, honest disclosure. It created suspicion, it created tension, and it created one powerful emotion: doubt. Because when documents come out in pieces, when names are blurred, and when timelines shift, the public starts to wonder what's really going on behind the scenes. And that's exactly what set the stage for the explosive developments that followed. Lawmakers enter the picture. Everything escalated when members of Congress were given access to previously unseen, unredacted files. These were not the same blacked-out documents the public had been seeing. These were the real, uncensored records. Imagine being in that room. No cameras, no phones, just stacks of sensitive documents, some of them tied to one of the most infamous criminal investigations in modern American history. Lawmakers were required to review them under strict conditions. They couldn't take photos. They couldn't make digital copies. They could only take handwritten notes. And what they reported afterward immediately sparked national headlines. Some lawmakers said that certain names, people described as prominent or influential, had been redacted from earlier public releases. According to them, those redactions may not have had clear legal justification. That single claim reignited public outrage. Because if names were hidden to avoid embarrassment or political fallout, as some lawmakers suggested, that raises a question that hits right at the heart of every American household. Are there different rules for powerful people? For families watching the news, the issue isn't just legal. It's emotional. It's about fairness. It's about justice. And it's about whether the system protects the powerful while the rest of the country plays by the rules. And that brings us to the most explosive part of this entire update: the redaction controversy. One of the biggest revelations from this latest update involves the redactions themselves. Lawmakers reviewing the files said at least 6 individuals' names appeared to have been concealed in earlier releases. That may not sound like a huge number, but the details made it far more serious. Reports suggested that among those hidden names could be high-ranking or internationally influential figures. For the average American family, this hits a nerve, because when you hear that powerful people may have been shielded, it doesn't just sound like a legal issue, it sounds like a fairness issue. Think about it. If an ordinary citizen were connected to a major criminal investigation, would their name be hidden? Would their records be protected from embarrassment? That's the question driving the national conversation right now. Some lawmakers have argued that the law requires unclassified documents to be released without hiding names, simply to avoid political damage. And if that's true, then the redactions aren't just technical. They could represent something much bigger. To many viewers, it feels like the mystery isn't just about what's in the files, it's about what was left out. And that suspicion has only grown as more details come to light. Connections to the powerful. As new documents surfaced, reports began highlighting links between Epstein and a range of influential figures across politics, finance, and global business. The files included communications and records involving some of the world's most recognizable names, as well as high-level business discussions and meetings. Now, it's important to understand something clearly. Being named in a document does not automatically mean wrongdoing. Many people appear in investigative files simply because they cross paths with someone under investigation. But for the public, the emotional impact is still massive. Because when you see billionaires, executives, or high-ranking officials tied to the same network, it creates a sense that this scandal was far bigger than anyone originally believed. And that leads to a powerful question: how far did these connections really go? For families watching at home, it's not about the details of every name. It's about the bigger picture. It's about trust. It's about whether powerful circles operate under a different set of rules than ordinary Americans. And as more names and connections come into focus, the pressure for full transparency continues to grow. The timeline of delays and deadlines. The road to this massive document release hasn't been smooth. In fact, it's been filled with delays, missed deadlines, and legal battles. Congress passed a law requiring the government to release unclassified Epstein-related documents by a specific deadline. But when that deadline arrived, only a small portion of the files had been released. At one point, officials admitted that less than 1% of the documents had been made public, with millions still under review. Officials said the delays were due to the massive scale of the files and the need to protect the identities of victims, and that's a crucial point. Many of these documents contain sensitive and painful details involving victims, which means the review process isn't simple or quick, but for the public, the delays still created suspicion. Because every missed deadline raised the same question: is the government protecting victims or protecting powerful people? That tension between privacy and transparency has become one of the biggest themes of this entire story. What investigators actually found beyond the political drama and document releases, the files themselves contain serious allegations and investigative findings. Reviews of the records have shown that federal investigators had evidence of sexual abuse involving underage victims. That confirmation is a painful reminder that behind the headlines, this case is about real victims, real crimes, and real trauma. For many Americans, the focus isn't just on who appears in the files. It's on whether justice was fully served and whether every person involved was held accountable. And that's why the stakes feel so personal. Because when the justice system fails to act quickly or transparently in cases like this, it shakes confidence in the system as a whole. It makes families wonder, if something like this happened in my community, would the truth come out? Why? The mystery isn't over yet. Even after millions of pages have been released, the mystery is far from solved. Officials have acknowledged that millions of additional documents were still being reviewed at various stages. That means the public has only seen a fraction of the total information. And with every new release, new questions emerge. Why were some files heavily redacted? Why were deadlines missed? And why do some lawmakers believe important names were hidden? The story keeps evolving, and each update brings more tension, more speculation, and more pressure for full transparency. For the average American, it can feel like a puzzle with missing pieces, pieces that may take months or even years to fully reveal. The political and public fallout. The fallout from these releases has been massive. Lawmakers from both parties have demanded more transparency, and advocacy groups say key information is still being withheld. This bipartisan pressure shows just how big the issue has become. It's no longer a niche legal story. It's a national debate about accountability, trust, and justice. For everyday Americans, the issue cuts across political lines. It's not about party loyalty. It's about whether the truth is fully exposed. And when lawmakers themselves say they want more information released, it signals that this story is far from over. So here we are. Millions of pages released, millions more under review. Lawmakers raising alarms about hidden names, and the public still waiting for the full truth. This isn't just a scandal from the past. It's an ongoing story that could reshape public trust in the justice system, the government, and powerful institutions. And that's why it matters to you. Because when transparency is delayed, when powerful names are hidden, and when answers come slowly, it affects the confidence every family has in the system that's supposed to protect them. The Epstein files mystery may be blowing open, but the final chapter hasn't been written yet. More documents are expected. More revelations could surface, and the next update could change everything. So stay alert, stay informed, and don't look away. Because the truth in these files isn't just about the past. It could shape the future of accountability, justice, and trust in America. And if you want to stay ahead of every major development, every new release, and every breaking update, make sure you follow along, because the next headline could be the one that changes the entire story.